Assalamu alaikum. Welcome students to the first video lecture of physics. We're going to be discussing chapter 1 and it's called measurements. So this is the lecture 1 of the measurements. So we're going to look at the background which you have studied a little bit about the science, and then we'll move to physics. So first of all, what is science? So science is study of nature and behavior of matter. So we have whatever we see around us in the nature, we observe it and we deduct some results. And those results have become laws in the physics and the science. So scientists observe the nature and matter to deduce results about them and make laws according to the changing happening to them. So another definition is science is also knowledge obtained through observation and experimentation. We have already discussed observation, and experimentation is we set up a system intentionally and see what it can do and observe the results, and then scientists make laws according to their results. So we know that we just studied in the definition of science that it deals with the matter. So what is matter? Anything which occupies space and has some mass is called matter. So everything you look around you is matter. Chair, pen, human beings, plants, etc. Everything around you is matter. So there are two types of matter, so living matter and non-living matter. So keep this in mind, living matter and non-living matter. So branches of science which deal with matter are physics, chemistry and biology. So physics and chemistry that deal with non-living matter, and biology, it deals with living matter, plants, humans and animals. So branch of science which deals with the non-living matter is called, they are called physics and chemistry. So we're going to particularly look at physics now. So what is physics? A branch of science which deals with the physical properties of matter and energy. So what do we mean by physical properties and energy? So physical properties of any object, we just discussed the matter. We are going to be discussing matter all the time. So physical quantities related to it could be its mass, length, what is the volume of and what is the shape of it. If you look at your book, so it is matter and it has many quantities related to it. Its shape, its size, its volume. So these are the physical quantities, properties and quantities related to matter. Then we'll also discuss energy as well. So what is energy? So energy is the ability to move objects from one place to another place. That's the definition of physics. We'll discuss this in detail in chapter 4. So there are different forms of energy: heat, light, sound, etc. So these are all forms of energy. So we're going to move to physics, application of physics. So everything we look around is application of physics: TV, mobiles, cars, buildings, communication, electricity and bulbs. So all these things are application of physics. So then you have branches of physics. So physics deals with different matter as well as energy changes. So these are the branches. The first one is mechanics. So branch of physics which deals with the moving objects and the causes of that motion is called mechanics. Then you have heat. By name we can tell that it deals with the heat energy. And then you have sound. So by the name we can see that it is a branch of science which deals with the sound and its traveling, how fast it travels, etc. So then you have light, also called optics. Branch of science which deals with light related instrument is called optics. Then you have electricity and magnetism. Then you have atomic physics. So atomic physics deals with the structure of atom. Then nuclear physics, it deals with the nucleus, particularly nucleus of the atom. and changes in it. Then you have plasma physics. So plasma physics is about ions. So we know that matter can gain charge, positive or negative. We might have studied before, and you'll study later as well. So branch of science which deal with the ions is called plasma physics. Then you have geophysics. So whatever is within the earth. So if you go down below the earth, so there are certain ores and materials and magma, etc. So that's study of geophysics. Okay, that study of earth core is called geophysics. Now we're gonna officially start the first chapter, that's measurements. So first of all, we have physical quantities. So all the measurable quantities are called physical quantities. Anything which you can measure is called physical quantities. You can measure length, you can measure mass, you can measure weight, you can measure speed. So everything I just said is a physical quantity. So physical quantity has two features. One is magnitude and the other one is units. So we're going to look at what is magnitude and what is unit. So we're going to take an example. Let's say you have 10 kilograms of anything, let's say sugars, let's say stone or whatever. So it has 10 kilogram. So it is representing a physical quantity. Which physical quantity is involved? It's mass, because the unit of mass is kilogram. So as we discussed here, so physical quantity has two things. So this number here, 10, numerical value represents the magnitude. So this numerical number 10 is the magnitude, and the unit of this physical quantity is kilograms. You can see this is the kilogram. So numerical value represent magnitude and kilogram represent unit of the quantity. So other example of physical quantities are mass, length, time, speed, etc. Okay, so now we are going to discuss types of physical quantities. So there are two types of physical quantities: base quantities and derived quantities. So we'll discuss the base of quantities first. So these are 7 physical quantities which form foundation of other physical quantities. So these are the naturally occurring quantities. When we join these, we get other physical quantities. So these are 7 and their names are here. This is length, mass, time, electric current, temperature, intensity of light, and amount of substance. So you already know about length, mass, time, electric current, temperature. So intensity of light is how much light is coming. So measurement of that is intensity. And the amount of substance is how many particles are there in a substance. So it's now you might have studied and you might not have studied yet. You will study in chemistry the moles concept, and that is the amount of substance. So then you have derived quantities. So we just discussed there are only 7 quantities which occur naturally. So all the other physical quantities, they are combination of those basic quantities, base quantities. So when you join two base quantities, 2 or more base quantities, you get the derived quantities. So those physical quantities which are expressed in terms of base quantities are called derived quantities. So volume, if you look, so here is example of area, volume, speed. So if you look at the area, so length is involved 2 times. So length into length, that's your area, or length into width. So the length and width, they both belong to base quantity length. Then you have volume. You can see that there is a one quantity, that's length, it's repeating 3 times. Then in speed, you can differentiate. There are 2 different quantities involved. So it's unit speed, we measure in meter per second or kilometers per hour. What does that mean? Kilometer is base quantity, that's a length, and you have time, that's hours. So that's another quantity. So they both combine to make derived quantities. So other derived quantities are force, work, energy, power, electric charge, electric potential, so etc. So these are derived quantities. So then you have base units. So we know that names of, as we discussed earlier, physical quantities have two things, a magnitude and unit. So we know the magnitude is the numerical number, and the unit is in which that physical quantity is represented. So that's mass is represented in kilograms, time is represented in seconds. So that's unit. The unit that describe base quantities are called base units, and each base quantity has its SI unit. Okay, so we'll discuss what does SI mean. So standard international units. We'll discuss that later. So we know that there are 7 physical quantities, so they will have units as well, because all physical quantities have two things, magnitude and unit. So length, this table here shows you name of the quantity, symbol of the quantity, unit, and the symbol of unit. So quantity itself has a symbol, and the unit also has a symbol as well. So let's look at it. So length, its unit is meter, mass. Then you have time, electric current, its unit is ampere, intensity of light, that's candela, temperature, Kelvin, and amount of substance, that's mole. That's the base quantities. Units are called base units. So then you have derived units. So we know that the units used to measure derived quantities are called derived units. So these units are made up of different units. So if you look at the first one in the table, that's speed. So it is made up of meters, that's length based quantity, and the second. So second is the unit of time. So the base units combine to make derived units. Alright students, so that's it for first lecture. So next lecture we're going to start from SI units. So take care. Allah Hafiz. Allah Hafiz. Allah